and welcome to Things We Said Today, our weekly podcast about anything and everything to do with the Beatles as a group, as solo artists, past, present, things to come if we hear about them. I'm Alan Kozin, the author of From the Cavern to the Rooftop and Got That Something, How the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand Changed Everything, and a reviewer for the Wall Street Journal and various other publications. And I'm joined by my esteemed co-hosts, Ken Michaels, who you know is the host of the syndicated Beatles radio show Every Little Thing. Hello, Ken.
Hey, Alan. Hi, everybody.
And Steve Marinucci, the world's only full-time Beatles reporter. You can read his work in Billboard.com, Access.com, that's AXS.com, and in Goldmine, and in Variety, and every week there are 10 or 15 more. I can't keep up with them. So, hey, Steve.
Hey, Alan. Hello, everyone.
Okay, and today we're going to talk about George Harrison's Brainwashed, just because we've been talking about Sgt. Pepper for most of the last year, and thought maybe we would look into one of the solo albums, and we agreed on that by actually unanimously. But before we get on to Brainwashed, any news items that you want to report, Steve?
Well, it looks like Sgt. Pepper is, and it's not really that surprising with all the online reaction, is doing really well in the charts. It hit number one on officialcharts.com in the UK, and it's going to hit number 3 in America on the Billboard Hot 200 next week. So that's really a good thing that it's doing well. It also went to number 5 in Australia. Mm-hmm. So it's doing. I haven't checked around the world, but that's a good, that's a good indication. I mean, 50 years after it gets released, it goes back in the charts and hits number 1 in the UK. So that's good. I also put up a story today. This is Monday on Variety that one of the cutouts from the Sgt. Pepper album is being auctioned on the 14th. That would be the Bobby Breen cutout, which is the little head that's turned to the side between George Harrison and Marlene Dietrich in the lower right-hand part of the cover. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's not very often anymore that these things get auctioned, so that's kind of interesting. They're estimating the worth of it, and I don't know how much this means, or whether they'll get there, is $50,000 to $70,000, and that's quite a bit. Breen, by the way, was an actor, was a child actor, and I have to admit, I'm kind of an old movie lover, and he doesn't ring a big bell with me, but he did several movies when he was a kid. But in any event.
Yes.
So that's
he came from Canada, and
right.
Then apparently he moved to America.
Yeah, and
U.S.
And he said he never knew how they got the picture of him, where they got it, and why they used it. So, mm-hmm. but the Beatles apparently were fans of his when they were kids. And a couple of other things that are getting auctioned is the Andy Warhol Beatles portrait that was used on the cover of the Rolling Stone book on the Beatles from 1980, and there's also a Swedish 63 concert tour poster from Stockholm that's also getting auctioned. There's a bunch. It's an all Beatles auction, and those are just a couple of the highlights. But anyway.
And which house is doing it?
It's called Paddle 8, which I have to admit I've never. This is the first time I've heard of them. But yeah, it's in New York. It's in your area, Mr. Cozen.
My former area.
Your former area, that's right. Well, you're going to be there again in a few days. But in any event, so it's ongoing until the 14th. And it's Paddle 8, one word, PADDLE, numeral 8, for those of you that are interested in taking a look at what they have.
Do you think there's some lunatic collector out there who wants to get every piece of the Sgt. Pepper cover to assemble in his living room?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think it's it's going to happen. I mean, I think it's already a little late for that, but
this is the thing with collecting. I mean, once you get a piece of something, you have to go for the whole rest of it.
That's right.
I mean, I didn't used to actually collect memorabilia in particular. I was more into music and print items, and someone gave me one of the Remco Beatle dolls. It was not only that, they gave me one Remco Beatle doll, and it was John, and it was missing his guitar. So I not only spent the next few years rounding up the rest of the Remco dolls, but I ended up getting another John because I needed one with a guitar, which means I didn't really have to do it in the first place.
Right.
So now I have a full set.
Like
plus
you're like that guy in that McCartney video.
I wish.
What, from My Brave Face?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I had the stuff he had, but of course he
doesn't
really have it
know.
either. He's got it from McCartney.
Right.
Right. Okay. So, any other notable items?
Well, I was going to one more thing. The 14th, 3 more Yoko Ono albums are being reissued.
Oh, right.
Fly, Approximately Infinite Universe, and Midsummer. Wait a minute. Now I forget what the third one is. But anyway, yeah, there's three coming out on Chimera on the 14th for those of you that are following the reissues. They're
the 14th of June.
Right.
Okay.
June, that's coming right up.
Okay. I actually have a question about the Billboard charts and all. And I don't know if we can answer this, but when I heard that Sgt. Pepper debuted at number 3, or is going to, this is for the week of June 17th, I was wondering, because there's so many variations of it, does this mean that it's the single disc of the new remix that's number 3, or is it the deluxe one that's the 2-disc version, or is it the deluxe box set? Is it all of them combined into one? How do they
I think in a case like that they combine them. I don't think that they differentiate. I don't think they do. I mean, I've never seen. I can't recall ever seeing. Well, I mean, I'd have to. I don't think they do.
Have you run into any info about the breakdown of sales among the different editions?
Are you talking to me?
Well, either of you, but I know you look into this, so.
No, I have not.
The Rolling Stone issue says that it sold 75,000 copies, but it didn't break it down.
Right.
As to the different variations. So that's why I'm bringing this up.
I would guess that the single disc version probably is selling the least.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, because everybody, I think, maybe I'm projecting, but I think everybody wants outtakes. And whether you're able to or willing to spring for the big box with 2 discs of outtakes, or whether you'll be satisfied with one extra disc that has like the alternate Pepper as a second disc. I kind of think probably more people are going to go for that than just the straight up remix with nothing extra. Mm-hmm. That's just my gut feeling. Interesting to find out.
Find out.
Yeah.
Let's dig into this.
Okay.
If any of our listeners knows, let us know. Write to us.
Yeah, send us a note.
Yeah. One thing that crossed my mind this week was whether or not the new mix actually detracts from the canon. I mean, given that it's not, it's not an official mix, and as we talked about, that it's and as Giles has said, it's just a performance. Do you think it detracts from the canon or adds to it?
I don't really think either way.
Really?
It's not part of the canon, but it's just something else to listen to. It's like I said before, it's just another way of listening to the album. That's all it is. The same way Let It Be Naked was. The same way Love is, They're not part of the, that canon, but...
I kind of suspect also that like 98% of people who buy any of these editions also already have one of the previous issues. So.
Right. I mean, I would be amazed if there were any first-time buyers of Pepper from any of the editions that came out. I mean, you could kind of see that maybe there are a couple of people that, young people especially. And if you are, I mean, I'd love to, if you're young and this is your first exposure to Sgt. Pepper, write in and tell us. I mean, I'd love to hear about that. But so many of the comments I saw on Facebook were from people who were making comparisons, between the old and the new. So, for what it's worth, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And by the way, Alan, at one point this week, I did a comparison with what you said about the remastered with the vocals and the remix, and I'm afraid to say you are correct about how the vocals sound a lot clearer on the remastered. I was really surprised. But anyway.
Well, never wrong.
Huh?
You mean the stereo remix, the new one?
Mm-hmm. Versus remastered, the vocal.
The 2009.
Vocal quality on the 2009 really sounded a lot sharper.
I wasn't thinking so much of sharpness necessarily as, the word I was using was suppleness. I mean, the sort of human ebb and flow quality of someone singing seemed a little bit squashed on the remix, I think. We also got an interesting email from a listener, Bruce Bernstein. I don't know if he says Bernstein or Bernstein, about the release date of Pepper, because he mentioned a Wikipedia article that cites Alan Weiner's book as saying that it was actually in the stores in Britain on May 26th, which could explain the release date of the remaster. But and we were trying to find out, if that was so, because it isn't said very much, but he then came back and found that Bruce Spicer, in his new book, mentions that it had gotten into British stores on May 25th. So should we be rethinking what we think of as the release date of Sgt. Pepper? We always say June 1st and June 2nd, but you could actually get it a few days earlier.
I think if it floats into stores into a few stores a couple of days early, no, I don't want to adjust the thinking for that. I really don't.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen other people have commented about that too, but I think that's even Parlophone listed as June 1st.
Right.
Why would you want to? No, I don't get that. I don't think. And the reason why I think the new remix, and I honestly did not check with Universal on this. The only reason I think the new version came out before June 1st was because they were trying to get it out by June 1st. So,
right.
And June 1st didn't fall on a Friday, which is the release date.
Right.
So I think really that was the reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was anything mysterious about it. I don't think they were trying to do anything strange. I think that was the reason. It was just other than as I recall, and tell me if I'm right, didn't the 9/9 stuff come out on 9/9? Didn't they do that on 9/9 because they were able to, right? Well, I don't think it. You would think that. I mean, if anything, the 50th anniversary of Pepper would probably be something they could do that with, but they didn't. They didn't.
Yeah.
So anyway.
But anyway, the whole May 26th thing. I'm sure there's other examples of albums that leaked out before the official release date.
Right.
But record companies go by that date. So
right.
I guess we should too.
Okay.
Whatever is listed as official.
Right.
Okay, though. So shall we get on to the main topic?
Let's do it.
Okay. Other than to note that we have, I believe, now officially spoken more about Sgt. Pepper than we have about Pure McCartney, which is as it should be. So
I'm not in agreement there.
Really?
We still have never done a proper show on Pure McCartney.
Well, no. On its 50th anniversary, you can dig me up.
There we go.
Okay. So all the listeners who wanted more done on Pure McCartney, don't say I haven't tried.
Okay. So Brainwashed. Brainwashed is an interesting record in that, like there aren't that many. I mean, there's Milk and Honey is the other one that comes to mind, but it's an actual posthumous Beatles record. And he was, I think, pretty close to finishing this up by the time he died in 2001, November 2001. And it came out in 2002 with, I think, a bit more work by, Danny and some of George's colleagues. Was Jeff Lynne involved? Yeah.
Jeff Lynne. Jeff Lynne, yeah.
So, yeah. What was your feeling about it when it came out and in the run up to it coming out, Ken?
I was very pleased with what I heard. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really think that once you take a look at all the songs, it's a very solid collection. The more you learn about it, the more that you're aware that some of the songs are actually kind of old.
Right.
I shouldn't say too old, but I mean, Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea was taken off a TV broadcast of Jools Holland from 1992.
Well,
still, it's great to listen to something like that, but it's not like it's that these were all brand new compositions, because they weren't.
Right, and that wasn't even one of his compositions. It was what's his name? Harold
Cab Calloway.
Cab Calloway recorded it. Yeah, Harold Arlen,
Yeah.
Ted Koehler. But and in fact, I don't know. Do you have a copy of that clip, the Jools Holland clip, where they do Devil in Deep Blue Sea? Because this is a different take. It's notably different in a number of ways.
Okay, it's been a while since I've watched it, but I'll have to listen to that. It's really noticeable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember the specifics, but I know that it was, I was pretty familiar with the video clip by the time this came out, and I was kind of surprised when I played this the first time that it was different. But I mean, he must have had a number of takes of it, and Danny chose a different one than was on the video, which is always kind of nice because it means that we've got two.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
and then,
yeah,
there's other songs like Run So Far, which George gave to Eric Clapton to do. Right. It's on his Journeyman album, and George, in fact, played on it.
Right.
Stuck Inside a Cloud is supposed to be a song from between 33 and a Third and the George Harrison album. Mm-hmm. Because I remember one of my favorite radio specials ever, there was a special that came out for Brainwashed, and there were some amazing interviews in that special from Olivia and Danny and Jeff Lynne. And Jim Keltner was in there, and he talked about Stuck Inside a Cloud as a song that he remembered far back, which still, whenever he heard it later on, he just got emotional hearing it. So Any Road was also an older song, and I'm sure you guys know that we got to hear Any Road before this ever came out.
Mm-hmm.
On the MTV interview.
On the MTV.
Yeah.
It was John Fugelsang when George was promoting Chants of India with Ravi Shankar.
Right.
And John Fugelsang was egging him on to perform some songs, and he did that song, and we'd never heard it before.
Right.
So that song had been laying around, and I believe the story is that was around the time when George was making a video for, I believe, This Is Love, and there was a sign that George saw in Hawaii that said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And that led to writing that song. Mm-hmm. So, there's a handful of songs there that are not entirely new, but you combine that with all the newer ones, and it's, song for song, it's a very strong album.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, did we know what his thoughts were about pulling all these things together? I mean, I had the impression that he left Danny some blueprints of sorts, but do we know if he had the running order and that kind of thing?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Interesting.
No, I think he just felt that he knew that if he left it in Danny's hands and Jeff Lynne's hands, they'd have a pretty good idea of what George would have wanted anyway, even, with the blueprints and anything else that they still had to question.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I could ask Steve the same question, what your initial feeling was when it...
There are good posthumous albums and there are not so good posthumous albums. And I think you can directly compare this one to Milk and Honey. Milk and Honey wasn't a bad album, but because it was so, partially because it was so unfinished, it's not as good overall as this is, as Brainwashed is. The thing that's so amazing about Brainwashed is how good it was practically all the way through. It wasn't perfect, but it was really, really, it was really great. I mean, in terms of, I saw one review, I think AllMusic calls it his best album in 30 years. I'm not sure I'd go back that far, but it's a excellent album. It really, really is. I mean, Any Road is brilliant. Vatican Blues is brilliant. Rising Sun knocks me down.
Beautiful.
Marwa Blues, I think made me get emotional the first time I heard that. I just absolutely, absolutely love that. And as I recall, and I did not look it up, that won a Grammy, and it should have. Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, I mean, that was great that he did another Hoagie Carmichael song. Brainwashed.
That wasn't Hoagie Carmichael.
That wasn't Hoagie Carmichael?
No, we were just talking about that. That was Harold Arlen.
Oh, was that Harold Arlen? Okay. Yeah. Harold Arlen, as in Over the Rainbow, Harold Arlen.
Right.
That's who that is. Okay.
And Ted Poland.
Okay. So I mean, that's a great song. If there's one thing that they should have done, they should have put Horse to the Water on here. That song would have fit in perfectly, and it's a great song. And I've always hated the fact that it's kind of sat out there all by itself.
Yeah. There were two of those too.
Right.
There's when it first came out, it was on Small World Big Band. It was 5 minutes, and then Jules Holland put out a Best of Friends compilation where it's 5 minutes 13 seconds. So collect them all.
Jules, you person, you. What can we say? Yeah. But I mean, that's really the thing. And again, I don't want to down Milk and Honey too much, because Milk and Honey is a good album, but the fact is that it wasn't as finished an album as Brainwashed is, and that's one of the nice things about Brainwashed, that it has a completeness to it that Milk and Honey had, was a rough album. It's really, it's not a throwaway. It's not anything like that. It stands on its own, and that's what's the nice thing about it.
Well, Milk and Honey, to me, when I first heard it, there were songs in there I liked, but I was kind of disappointed because it didn't sound finished. But over the years, I've come to really love Milk and Honey, with the exception of Forgive Me, My Little Flower Princess, which I kind of felt the song, as a song itself, John didn't finish writing. There is something missing there. But I like the looseness of the songs on Milk and Honey. It sounds more like, a rehearsal, but a damn good rehearsal, whereas
it sounds more
Fantasy,
like
Double Fantasy,
like Lennon.
Yeah, but Double Fantasy sounds very tight, very polished, whereas Milk and Honey is much more raw, but it's great that way. Well, but yeah, it's a big difference between that and Brainwash. Brainwash was it was a finished product, and Danny and Jeff Lynne worked on it and perfected it and did the best that they could, and it sounds finished.
And that's the distinction between that and Milk and Honey. I still think that, had John been around to finish Milk and Honey, I think it, who knows what we would have heard. I mean, where he would have gone with that. I mean, we don't know that, that it would have sounded as it did. At least the songs would have sounded as they did.
As much as I love Grow Old With Me, imagine if we had a studio recording of that from John.
Right.
That song is so absolutely brilliant. It's a masterpiece. And we just have the demo of it, which is lovely in its own way. But if we had John in the studio, maybe with an orchestra, whatever kind of touches he wanted to add to it, it would have been so good. It would have been a classic.
Well, even in the demo version, it's it's got a charm. I think she was smart to put the demo version on there, and I don't know if she put it on there just to because she had the demo or because she wanted, because she could have taken that and done something with it, and she didn't, and that's probably one of the really nice things about the song. I mean, you know how she is with how artistic she is and how she looks at everything through an artist's eye, and I suspect that that's how she looked at that song and why she didn't do anything with it. And I think that was a good move, given what she did do with it. So, but back to Brainwashed, I think there are just so many. I mean, Rockin' Chair in Hawaii is hilarious. Mm-hmm. The guitar on Never Get Over You is just really nice. I think this is a really, really good album. I think it's a really one. I wouldn't call it the best album he's done in 30 years. I wouldn't go that far, but I think it was an excellent finish for George. It's again, you wonder what George would have done had he been around to finish the whole thing. But still, it turned out nice, to use the phrase.
I have a feeling that Danny and Jeff did such a great job on this album that even if George had lived, it would have sounded pretty close to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're probably right there. I think that's probably true. Again, though, I think Horse to the Water would have been a great addition, and I don't know why they didn't do that. Maybe, why they didn't use it. It really belonged on this album, but maybe they did it so it wouldn't be so it wouldn't sound posthumous. It wouldn't have the posthumous feel to it, because had they, pulled that track in, it would have seemed a little more posthumous than it was.
What do you mean? I don't quite understand that. So what do you have in mind?
Because I guess the timeline of when Horse to the Water came out, that came out before the album did.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe just collecting all the tracks at the end would have made it sound like a memorial, and they probably didn't want to do that. I don't understand what the thinking was there, though. I don't, but I don't know. I'm just punditing on and on and on. Yeah. What can I say?
I mean, my impression is, given the fact that some of these are older songs and some of them are things that we didn't know about, hadn't heard about. We knew about the Run So Far, for instance, because we'd had the Clapton one, and we knew about Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea because we had the clip. But it seemed sort of like these are things that, George had been recording in his home studio when he felt like it, and then just, put on the shelf. And it's kind of, that has a certain charm too. This is a guy who's, obviously still interested in writing songs and making music, but not necessarily that interested in getting it out there. Mm-hmm. Which, given the way a lot of his post-Beatles music was treated, you can kind of understand. It's like, okay, I'm going to still do it. I don't care whether it goes to the market or not. Gontrapo is like that in a way. He put it out, did no promotion. It just sort of disappeared. You almost wondered why he bothered, because I really like that album. I thought that really deserved more attention than he gave it or that anybody gave it. But so these things seem like, just sort of projects he did. It's as if we're getting a glimpse into his workshop in a way, or what he did musically when none of us were listening, because we didn't really have access to seeing what he was up to. So this is what he was up to. And it's kind of, it's kind of nice. They're nice old fashioned songs, verses, tunes, lyrics. Unlike, the stuff he was complaining about in Blood from a Clone. I think there are some great songs here too. I love Any Road. I think that's really just a very clever lyric, and Marwa Blues, as you say, I mean, that's just gorgeous. Rising Sun is gorgeous. I mean, these things have all of those George Harrison thumbprints, his kind of melody, his kind of slide playing, the whole sensibility. And even though it comes from disparate sources in terms of timeline, I think it hangs together really nicely. I don't think it's his best album. If I were going to pick one, it would probably be Cloud Nine, maybe, or All Things Must Pass. But it's really a nice listen, and I remember at the time it came out, a lot of anticipation about it because we had really no way to know what to expect, what was going to be on there, and they delivered the press copies in a Walkman, a CD Walkman, that was glued shut. The disc was glued into it.
Really?
Yes. So, and the headphone was glued onto it. so
I don't think I got one of those.
I did, and so you couldn't make copies, and
wow.
And so naturally, I mean, I don't know if everybody was the same as me, but I saw that as a challenge, and I managed to get a copy pretty quickly. You could pry the player open without wrecking the disc, and get the disc out, and So unfortunately, that means that I don't any longer have the Walkman with the thing in it, which probably would be, who knows, maybe they're those collectible. Probably. Didn't have a logo on it or anything, though, so I don't know. but yeah, I mean, I remember, really waiting for it, and, and then it finally turned up first in that form. And I probably waited until I finished writing my review. I think I reviewed it for the Times. And once I finished that, I felt I could pry it open. If worst comes to worst, if I ended up ruining it, well, the disc was coming out in a couple of weeks anyway, so yeah.
One thing, and Alan was even kind of talking about this, with George, it's very important to note that after Cloud Nine, he never put out another solo album of all new material.
Yeah.
He just put out The Traveling Wilburys, and he put out Live in Japan, and the compilation of Best of Dark Horse. So it was his choice to stay away from, the public eye and to release anything.
And you gotta wonder why. You gotta wonder why, because I mean, if his last album had been Gontrapo, okay, fine, it didn't do anything. But Cloud Nine got a lot of attention and was very well liked. So why do you think he didn't do anything else after that?
Well, remember he was, and I'm not sure how the years correlate, but remember he was happy just being home, being a gardener for a long time, and I think we've talked about, how his relationship with the record company and how he got ticked off at them, and I think that had something to do with it. I think he just kind of for a while just said, "Screw it! I don't need to do this anymore." And then I've thought about this, over the years. I mean, and I really get, as a very deep Harrison fan, it bums me out that there were so many years that we did not get stuff from him that we probably could have, and I think that's all part of it, and it's too bad. I mean, it's really a shame that that's what happened. I mean, you can't get mad at him, and then I think I'm guessing what happened. I mean, and let me say that I'm guessing is that when he got ill, he realized that he needed to, he had music he wanted to get out, and he was going to have to get it out. And so that's a shame. I don't know if that's true. That's just a theory that I've had. I mean, what do you guys think?
Oh, I totally agree with that about George feeling that he had to complete these songs. But I also agree with you that I remember how long a wait it was going from Gone Trappa to Cloud Nine. It was 5 years, the same way that we had to wait 5 years for John. You know, and but George kind of felt that, you know, he'd achieved enough. He loved making music. He didn't care as much whether or not it went to number one, you know, whether it was a blockbuster album. A few times I've heard him comment about the fact that, you know, he had to do interviews, like in the case of Cloud Nine, because the record company expected it of him. If he had his way, he probably wouldn't do them. He only did them because he had to. It was part of the game, and that's what the record company expects of you. Same thing with making videos, you know. He didn't want to have to go through all that, but he did love making music. That never changed. And the fact that he had his own recording studio where he can record whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted at his leisure, these are songs that through the years, you know, he wrote and recorded, or at least partially recorded. So, and hopefully there's plenty more. But to go back to this album, I would say that Marwa Blues is absolutely stunning as an instrumental, and the slide guitar work on that is so gorgeous. You know, it's one of the most beautiful pieces of work. I know Olivia, it's a favorite of hers. And Rising Sun is also so absolutely, it's a perfect recording. It's one of his best recordings. And the slide guitar work in there, it's just so perfect. You know, everything about that recording is so wonderful. The lyrics in this album are fantastic. You know, you've got all the different sides of him.
Right.
And I especially like, well, a very poignant song is Looking for My Life, because if you read the lyrics of it, it certainly sounds like something that he wrote towards the end, as though he's aware that the end is near. There are certain lyrics in there where you know, almost every verse. Had no idea that I was heading toward a state of emergency. I had no fear where I was treading. I only found it out when I was down upon my knees looking for my life. You know, it's he's sharing something really personal with us here. Pisces Fish is also a favorite of mine. Very folk-oriented. I think I've said on this show it's kind of Dylan-esque. One of my favorite lyrics from him, which I think is showing a very personal side, explaining how he is. He says here, I'm a living proof of all life's contradictions, one half's going where the other half's just been. You know, this is powerful stuff.
Yeah, and what's really good with those songs is the way the music folds in. It's not just the lyrics. The music folds in on those songs beautifully. I mean, they're just amazing. The way they, I mean, with Rocking Chair in Hawaii, the little jab at Dylan at the beginning there was just absolutely wonderful. You know. And there's all sorts of, you know, you have examples of Harrison's humor on this album, of his philosophy, of, you know, he gets very serious in a couple of points, and it's just you know, it makes you sad that this was it. You know, it's too bad that we haven't heard more. You know, maybe what would happen inevitably if they pulled out another album, you know, of unreleased tracks, is that people would end up comparing it to this, or, you know, and that kind of thing. Maybe that's the reason why we haven't heard so much from George. But I mean, this is a beautiful album. It really is. So
I got to ask you, what is the jab to Bob Dylan?
Imitation. He does an imitation of Dylan at the beginning of Rocking Chair in Hawaii.
I never really noticed that.
Yeah, I heard it that way too.
Yeah,
yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, well, he does kind of in the same way that Joan Baez, you know, kind of makes fun of him. You know, he did the same thing at the beginning of Rocking Chair in Hawaii. Yeah, you can. I think it's definite. It's definitely there.
I mean, you might not want to characterize it as a jab so much as an allusion.
Well, I mean, it's a joking. I mean, it's all fun. It's all in fun. It's not a, by jab, I don't mean he's you know, he's stabbing him, or he's, you know, criticizing him.
Serve Yourself is, for John, that is really kind of a sarcastic look at Dylan, and not just Dylan, but it's basically a response to you got to serve somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty obvious.
Yeah. So, but this is just a kind of a passing tip of the hat, you might say.
Right. I think it was meant to be taken. It was meant to for Dylan to take it as a joke and to smile at it, because that's the way it seems to me it was. Nothing more serious than that.
Okay. So. Well, you guys know that song, Rocking Chair in Hawaii, George had worked on as far back as All Things Must Pass. There are recordings of that. And in fact, it was pretty much based on Hank Williams' song called Long Gone Lonesome Blues.
Right.
Because if you listen to Hank's recording, it even has that riff in there, da 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 da.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely pulling all sorts of things in there. And your mention of the Hank Williams influence probably was a kind of a nod to Dylan too, because Dylan was a big Hank Williams fan. So.
Mm-hmm. What about the title track? I mean, we haven't really talked about that, and that's a distinct side of George too. It's I think the same impulses as Taxman in a way. He's taking a very sort of, I don't know if cynical is the right word, but he's looking at society as a whole and governments and everything, and taking a very sort of critical view.
Right. Well, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. No.
George always was very cynical.
Yeah, I'm looking at the lyrics here, and I'm in fact, when I was listening to it a little while ago, I was listening. I was going, damn, he's.
It's so current.
It's so current. Yes. Yeah. Brainwashed by the military, brainwashed under duress, brainwashed by the media. You're brainwashed by the press, brainwashed by computer, brainwashed by mobile phones, brainwashed by the satellite, brainwashed to the bone. Bingo.
Yep.
I mean, that's amazing. So. Yeah.
If you heard the radio special that I was talking about before, Olivia Harrison was talking about the song, and just saying that George is fed up with all these things in life that we are brainwashed by in our society, and we should just get back to nature and the simple things in life and not be tied to cell phones all the time, And so this song really illustrates that very well. I also love P.T. Vatican Blues because it brings to mind all the problems that we've had in recent years in the church and all the sex scandals. It makes me think about that, and it also brought to mind when George brought up the Pope, and Waiting on You All. So it kind of has that similar feel to it. Well, the Pope owns 51% of General Motors, so I love that side of George too.
I think though you have to give a little more weight to Brainwashed, since he made it the title track.
Oh,
I think there was definitely a reason for that, and if he's making any kind of a statement with this album, I think that's it. Which you can, debate that one for whatever, wherever you want to go with it. But yeah, I think that was definitely, if there's a statement with this album, that's it. I'm not sure I agree with doing that, but I think that's what he did. I would actually think Any Road would have been a better ongoing statement, but that's me. So.
Any Road is the one that sticks with you longer. I mean, Brainwash is almost sort of lost there, I mean, in the whole discussion so far until just now, we've talked about so many of the others, and it's only now we're getting to this, and it's the title of the album, as you say.
Right. I think Rising Sun is probably the other. If there's a couple of tracks that really, really stick out, I think Rising Sun is the other one. Along with Marwa.
Well, we all have our favorites. I definitely think Any Road is catchy as hell.
Yeah.
I probably would have picked that as the first single, although I do really love Stuck Inside a Cloud a lot. That one, Rising Sun, definitely very catchy. And when I think about hits, I do try to think of songs that are commercial. So I would certainly put Any Road in that that category as I would Rising Sun.
Are those the two most songs that you, as a radio person, would see? Would those have been the two most commercial, Ken?
Probably. That doesn't mean they're my favorites.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying in terms of programming them. You know, if you're an FM programmer in the day when this album comes out, and you're looking to program tracks, would those have been, along with Marwa? I think Marwa too. But I mean, you're talking about Rising Sun and Annie Road as the two you would have gone with.
Yeah, they're probably the two strongest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could see album rock stations playing those more so than I would Stuck Inside a Cloud. And I do love Stuck Inside a Cloud, don't get me wrong. I could hear rock stations playing Pisces Fish. I could hear them playing P2 Vatican Blues a lot.
I seem to remember just about the whole album got played, and a lot. I mean, it didn't. I mean, you tell me.
Not at all. Not at all. If anything, I was extremely disappointed that I didn't hear it being played on the radio that much. Stuck Inside a Cloud got some airplay on adult contemporary stations where it charted, but it didn't chart that high. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, I was quite stunned that the album didn't do better because it made the top 20, but it didn't even go top 10. And this is a year after George's passing. You would have thought there would have been a lot of interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting. Milk and Honey took a little more than 3 years to come out. We had to wait. It was painful to wait for Milk and Honey. But Brainwashed was a year. So it was still fresh in everyone's minds then, George's death. So I was really kind of surprised that it didn't get as much airplay. I didn't hear that much airplay at all, Steve.
Really?
To tell you the truth. And it certainly deserved it.
It seems to me about the first half of the album got played, and the second half did not, except for maybe Brainwashed because it was the title track. But okay.
Well, I never heard anything being played on the radio, with the exception of Stuck Inside a Cloud, and to a lesser degree, Any Road. That's all I ever remember hearing on the radio.
Okay. All right. Well, in any event, I mean, there's no getting around. It's a, I don't want to use the word masterpiece because I think that's probably overselling it a little bit. But it's an album that, had he lived, he could have been proud of the way it was. I mean, there's no question about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's pretty close to a masterpiece in my eyes. It's kind of like, in many ways, I love, and we've talked about Gon Troppo here. Gon Troppo is an album that was completely ignored by the radio, and part of the reason is George's own fault because he didn't promote it. But I didn't hear anything on the radio of Gon Troppo other than Wake Up My Love, and that was minimal airplay for that one song. So we're just talking about the quality and the commercial success are two completely different things here.
I think, and I remember when we talked about that, and I don't think Gon Troppo was as even an album as this was. I think this was a more even album all the way through. It's got some ups and downs, but I think it's definitely overall a much more... What are you doing back there, Alan?
Yeah, I'm looking at the box set, and I don't know if we need to talk about the various different editions, but it came out, let's see what the year on the back, I think it was fairly soon after, in a sort of more deluxe presentation, this black box with Brainwashed and the Dark Horse symbol and George's signature in black on black. It's really nice looking. Has the standard CD in it, and a poster of the album cover, and a George Harrison guitar pick, and DVD. So, Steve.
Something.
Which the DVD has the making of the album.
And there is a Dark Horse decal as well.
Ooh.
So this version must be way out of print, right? Is this still possible to get this?
No, it's still on Amazon. You can get it depending on who you click on, but yeah, you can still pick it up for, I think, a reasonable amount.
Okay. Any other observations about the album, the individual songs, the prospect for 20th anniversary version in 5 years?
I don't think so. I don't think they think of anniversaries that much. I know that's kind of funny saying that after we've just had a Sgt. Pepper 50th anniversary, but those are few and far between. I just don't think they think in those terms.
I think a 20th anniversary is too soon. They won't do anything for that.
I think we're probably going to get more early takes, although it's taken a while. Yeah. I think that's what the plan is. And I just hope that we don't have to wait too much longer for Volume 2.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the right forum for all the unreleased stuff.
Sure. I could see, I'd be interested in hearing some early takes of these, you know. Mm-hmm. And of course they could. I mean, they really could take the version of Any Road that he played on the Fugelsang show right off the soundtrack. I mean, it's a different version, and it'd be sort of nice to have it preserved on a disc, or actually by then it'll be a stream.
Right. Right.
But,
yeah. No, that would be great. And that special, or that interview had Ravi Shankar, and they were talking about Chants of India.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's another album that was in that Harrison Shankar box set that came out a couple of years ago. But that was a great album too. That was a lot of. If you're into Indian music, that was a wonderful piece that they both did together.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there are so many sort of shows and appearances like that are kind of uncollected. I mean, his Dick Cavett interview is out in a Dick Cavett box set. He has put out, or his family has put out a lot of, you know, the promos, most of the promos by this point. The song promos, but there are a lot of things like the Fugelsang interview. I mean, and when I say a lot, I actually mean relatively few. I mean, because as we said, he wasn't out there doing interviews all the time. But I think there is actually sort of a nice collection to be had if they could pull those together, you know, and put out a DVD or two of some of his TV appearances from over the years.
The Cavett stuff is still available. Through Shout Factory,
right?
And that is there's actually, I mean, he did the Lennon Ono interviews and the Harrison interviews on separate DVDs, and those are well worth getting. If you don't have those, you really need to get those. Not just for the Harrison interview, because it really is good, especially when they introduce the band and. You see Harrison in the background there, which is really kind of funny. But of course the Lennon Ono interviews are just incredible. Those are just amazing.
You know, there's also the Rutland Weekend TV special where he plays the pirate song. You know, otherwise uncollected. So
the second so Paul is the second Beatle to do a pirate, not the first.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. We forgot we didn't mention that last week, did we?
Yeah, that's right. Of course, now we have to think about whether Ringo got close to that in any of his films. I mean, he did have an eye patch, I believe, in Listomania. So,
did he really?
I think he was supposed to be Pope, though. Not quite a pirate, but.
Well, Blind Man would be probably the closest to where he became, because I think he was a bandit in Blind Man. So, I mean, you could kind of call him a landlubber pirate from Blind Man, but
okay.
But then John never did anything like that I can recall.
No.
even in all the films with Yoko. So, oh well.
We're really reaching for something to say.
We are. we really are. We're getting really geeky here.
Someday this will make a trivia question someday. Which two Beatles played pirates?
That's right.
There we go.
Okay.
By the way, did you, one more question?
Yeah.
Did you see the USA? Had you guys have not seen the movie? I take it. Am I the only one? I'm the only one this movie. Well, USA Today said he'd gone to pirate, and I will admit, when you first look at him on the screen, you have to kind of blink your eyes a little bit, but I mean, there's no mistaking the voice when he comes in and starts talking that it's him, so.
Mm-hmm.
But,
I saw that article, and it made it sound like, he tried very hard to sound like a pirate, but in the end they let him keep his Liverpool accent.
right.
And see Maggie May.
Right. There's no, I missed the Maggie May completely because he, as I recall, he sings it at the beginning, not at the end. And so I didn't know when they were coming on the scene, although I had my suspicions because I knew he was going to be, I had heard something, it involved something about a jail cell. And so when they showed him and, I kind of went, oh, there he is. And by that time the song was already gone. And I don't know that I'm going to go back and see it. I'm sure we will down the road get the DVD and I'll be able to see it. And now hopefully they'll have some outtakes from that on the DVD. That would be nice.
That'd be fun.
I have not seen the soundtrack though, and I'm curious as to whether his version of Maggie May is on the soundtrack. And I have not, but I have not seen that since we've seen the movie. But let me say again that if you like Pirates of the Caribbean, you will probably like the movie. If you have not liked Pirates, you probably won't like the movie all that much, although there are two good scenes with Johnny, besides the McCartney scene, there are two good scenes with Johnny Depp that I thought were great. One's at the beginning and one's a little later on than that. But anyway.
Hey, before we go, just want to say that on our next show, we'll be giving our thoughts about the new PBS special on Sgt. Pepper. So we haven't deliberately avoided it. We will be talking about it on the next show.
Okay, guys, so maybe we should wind up.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Yeah. Okay, so Ken, how do people get in touch with you, and what kind of contests have you got coming up this week?
They can write to me by email at everylittlething@att.net. Also on my website, as I'm sure, well, hopefully you know, every single week I have Beatles trivia, in which you can win one of 9 amazing prizes, including the new Sgt. Pepper CD, Flowers in the Dirt, the special edition with the bonus disc of Elvis Costello demos, the acoustic demos, books from Mark Lewison and Kid O'Toole, a great selection of prizes there. And sometime this week, I'll be giving folks the chance to win a pair of tickets to see Joey Molland in concert. And you may have heard about this, guys, but he is going to be performing the entire Badfinger Straight Up album. He's doing that in concert now. And he's playing at Daryl's house in Pauling, New York on July the 2nd. And I have several pairs of tickets to give away. Just go to the upcoming concerts and events page on my website to find out how to win if you live in the area. So that's on July the 2nd, Joey Molland at Daryl's house. And one more thing, if you happen to be in the New England area, this coming Saturday, I'll be one of the MCs at the Fab Four Music Festival, which is an all-day event. It's 20 acts from the New York, New England area, all Beatles tribute acts, all performing throughout the day. There's an indoor stage and an outdoor stage. The outdoor one is the one that I'll be emceeing. It's called the Octopus's Garden stage. So if you happen to be in the area and you want to have a whole day of Beatle music, come on by, say hello to me. It's at the Oakdale Theater in Wallingford, Connecticut, this coming Saturday, which is June the 10th.
And Steve, how about you? How do people get in touch with you, and what should they look for coming out from you in the next week?
I just put out the Variety article today on the Sgt. Pepper auction. I don't have anything to reveal,
Okay.
but you can get a hold of me at BeatlesExaminer@gmail.com. I have a Beatles News and Information Facebook page and a Beatles News and Information Yahoo group that you can join, and the two of them do not do the same thing, so I post there, and you're welcome to talk about anything and everything, and there's been some very interesting posts, especially on the Facebook group lately. So if you're not there, I've been getting some great great links. that I've been posting. So please come and even if you just say hello to me, I'm there. So.
Okay, and you can write to all of us at thingswesaidtodayRadioshow@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter with the @ThingsWeSaidFab. And we have a Facebook page, Things We Said Today Beatles Radio Fans, which Steve just alluded to. And if you want to contact me, you can contact me through Facebook on either Alan Kozin or Alan Kozin Remixed. And so I think that's about it. So for Steve Marinucci and Ken Michaels, this is Alan Kozin saying thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.